This video provides an analysis of the Supreme Court's emergency stay in the Texas redistricting case, Abbott v. League of United Latin American Citizens. Following the 2020 census, Texas enacted a new congressional map in 2021. However, political pressure led the state legislature to pass a contested new map in August 2025, aimed at securing a partisan advantage. The Supreme Court intervened, voting to stay the lower court's order. This allows Texas to use the contested 2025 map for the 2026 elections while the case is appealed. The central disagreement is whether the map was motivated by politics or race. The concurrence argued the impetus was partisan advantage, while the dissent questioned if partisan objectives were achieved through racial gerrymandering. The majority argues that courts must presume legislative good faith. They assert that when evidence is ambiguous, courts must interpret it in the state's favor. Conversely, the dissent contends that this presumption was overcome by substantial evidence. This evidence included testimony, exhibits, and statements from the governor about the process being triggered by a legal demand letter. A key finding by the district court was the precise racial outcomes, where 3 redrawn districts were barely majority-minority, suggesting the mapmaker used racial data to hit explicit targets. The majority argued that challengers failed to provide a viable alternative map. This failure strongly suggests the state's map was based on politics, not race, because no alternative existed to achieve the partisan goals. The dissent countered that an adverse inference is not fatal when direct evidence is strong. They argue the substantial direct evidence, like the DOJ letter and governor's statements, makes the lack of an alternative map non-dispositive. The majority emphasized deference to the legislature's political choices. They state the burden is on challengers to disentangle race and politics, a demanding standard the district court failed to apply. The dissent stressed deference to the trial court's factual findings. They argue an appellate court owes significant deference to a trial court's facts, which are only reversible for clear error. Regarding timing, the majority applied the Purcell principle, stating courts should not alter election rules on the, quote, eve of an election. The dissent argued 11 months away is not the, quote, eve of an election. The immediate consequence of the stay is that the contested 2025 map will be used in the 2026 midterm elections. The ultimate constitutionality will be decided later, but the framework for the election is set. This dispute highlights the immense difficulty in distinguishing between permissible partisan gerrymandering and impermissible racial gerrymandering. It also raises questions about the power of appellate review over detailed factual findings. The 3 key takeaways are: the outcome is that the contested map will be used in 2026 due to the stay. The core conflict shows a deep judicial divide on evaluating evidence, and the future involves high hurdles for challenging gerrymanders. Question 1 explores what Abbott versus LULAC was about, and how the Supreme Court's decision shaped modern debates over racial and partisan gerrymandering. Question 2 asks how the court's ruling reflects long-standing tensions between protecting voting rights under the 14th and 15th Amendments and states' control over elections. Question 3 considers how the outcome has influenced legal strategies and civil rights litigation challenging discriminatory electoral maps in subsequent years. Question 4 addresses the real-world political consequences of the ruling for communities of color, especially Latino voters in states like Texas. Finally, Question 5 asks where Abbott versus LULAC fits in the broader arc of civil rights jurisprudence, considering historical cases like Brown versus Board of Education and Shelby County versus Holder.